You know, I would argue that our law enforcement has never fully been funded. And the liberal left, the Socialist Party, they want to defund what has never fully been funded.
On Tuesday in Richmond, Virginia, Democrat Governor Ralph Northam called a special session of the General Assembly to discuss, among other things, criminal justice reform, a euphemism for defunding police. Other items on the agenda included greater gun control legislation to further restrict the rights of Virginians to keep and bear arms, reallocating funds from police to reopen and increase the budgets of Virginia's many public schools, and a moratorium on evictions. While the mainstream media chose to focus on the protesters who gathered in favor of those liberal policies, they ignored the presence of a pro-police group, We Back Blue, who was there to show support for the brave men and women who risk life and limb to serve and protect. The New American was there and spoke with Melissa Roby, spokesperson for We Back Blue. When asked about the proposed legislation, here's what she had to say.
It is. We hold rallies and marches and community events across the country.
So what brings you out here today?
Well, the special session that they're talking about police reform and taking SROs out of schools and immunity and all of that good stuff, we want to just let them know that we support our police. The general public doesn't feel that way.
Okay, so there's a lot of talk right now about defunding the police.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the counter rallies here, I don't know if it's a counter rally, but one of the other events going on here today is geared toward defunding the police and using that money to fund schools. What would you say to that?
I don't agree with that. I just don't. I think that we need protection. I think we always have. I think SROs in our schools, we instituted that fully because of the school shootings that were happening. And kids are kind of out of hand these days. I'm not going to lie to you. We need people that can help and enforce the laws and things that are happening. Just because you're 15 years old and you break the law doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to you. So.
And while the mainstream media and many Virginia politicians chose to ignore the We Back Blue rally, one notable exception was Virginia Senator Amanda Chase, who represents Virginia's 11th district and has also thrown her hat into the ring to be Virginia governor in 2021, making her the first ever female Republican candidate for governor in Virginia. Here's what she had to say.
See ya.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for setting all this up and organizing.
Absolutely. It's very important. It's very
Absolutely.
important.
Yes, listen. We've got to make sure that we protect our men and women of our law enforcement. We need to ensure the public safety of Virginians everywhere across Virginia. They want to make sure that they can have thriving businesses. How can you have a thriving business when you have crime in the streets of Richmond? You have looting, you have arson, all kinds of destruction. What's going to happen to Richmond and surrounding cities if we don't support and back our law enforcement?
Right.
And we see all types of different attacks on law enforcement right now. Everything from trying to diminish their immunity, which I have talked to a number of law enforcement who said if you diminish their immunity, you're going to see law enforcement leave the profession altogether. They might go to private security. They might switch occupation. Listen, the Second Amendment is the first line of defense. Our law enforcement is the second line of defense. Here in the Virginia General Assembly, where we have the Democratic Socialist in charge of the policy here in Virginia, we're seeing an attack on both the first line of defense and the second line of defense. Every citizen should have the right and the ability to protect themselves, but they should also have the ability to call for help and to call for backup. We recognize, we understand that it can take minutes, it can take time for law enforcement to get there. So we need to have that first line of defense through that the Second Amendment affords us under the Constitution. But we also have to support our law enforcement. I would argue that our law enforcement has never fully been funded. And the liberal left, the Socialist Party, they want to defund what has never fully been funded. If you actually look at data, you would see we have a statewide shortage, not only with the Virginia State Police, but in every locality other than maybe Chesterfield, you have a lot of vacancies and a shortage of law enforcement. And they're having a hard time recruiting young men and women to go into law enforcement because they're not being backed by local, state, and federal elected leaders. So I stand here in support of law enforcement. Today, when we go into session, I will vote against any assault, any attack on our law enforcement. I'm not going to support it. And as a member of the Chesterfield FOP, also one of the folks who carries the legislation for the Fraternal Order of Police of Virginia. I've done it for the past 5 years. I have a record of supporting our law enforcement. They're the defenders of peace here in Virginia, and I stand with them.
So, Senator Chase, what would you say is the state of leadership in the state right now coming from Governor Northam?
There is no leadership in Richmond from Northam, from Stoney. They have been complicit. They have been absent. They have been MIA. I think they should both step down. They should resign. Yes. They have not even stood up for the people of Virginia. They have stood by as an accomplice and a right arm of the Democratic Socialist Party, doing their bidding of allowing all this destruction of our businesses in these in the cities, in the streets, they say that they are for protecting and promoting our minority communities. Many of them are in the cities, and they are not getting the protections that they deserve and that they need. That's a double standard. If you say that you're someone, show us. If you're with someone, show us by your actions. And so I think that's critical. There's no leadership in Richmond right now. I would say they're complicit. They're absent. They are not doing what's best for the citizens. They instead of supporting our law enforcement and policing, they are weaponizing this and making this a political statement. We should never allow our monuments to be destroyed. It's public property. It does not belong to Mayor Stoney. It does not belong to Governor Northam. It belongs to the people of Virginia. And so I'm very frustrated. There was no due process in place. The General Assembly set forward specific guidelines. Those passed in July, on July 1, and they did not even respect the law that just passed and was signed into law. They did not even respect that.
And so the special session today, the governor is addressing a couple of different things. One is these measures to basically hamstring the police with defunding and removing of immunity and things of that nature. And then another thing he's addressing today is the right to keep and bear arms. If you were governor,
when I'm governor.
When you are governor, where will you stand on those issues?
Listen, I'm going to fully support our law enforcement. I will fully support freedom in Virginia. And under my Chase administration, I will respect the Constitution of the United States of America, the Virginia Constitution. Even during a crisis, we must protect the Constitution, and there will be a lot of changes coming about. I will reverse all of these attacks on the Second Amendment. I will make sure that the people of Virginia, their freedom will be taken care of.
This has been C. Mitchell Shaw reporting for The New American from Richmond, Virginia.